The Panthers are back on the field for day one of training camp on Wednesday morning, but one veteran will not be out there as the team announced on Tuesday that Josey Jewell has been released. How will that move impact the Panthers moving forward? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky for all your training camp coverage, as I will be out there on Wednesday, on Thursday, and I think other than like 2 days every single day for training camp, covering your Carolina Panthers boots on the ground, either at me or DM me with any sort of questions you have. Yes, the mailbag's coming back at some point in time. May have a special one during training camp. Certainly we'll be back throughout the regular season on Wednesdays, but at me, DM me, follow me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. This episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We have made it, y'all. Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Your Carolina Panthers are back out there on the field for day one of training camp ahead of the 2025 regular season here in Carolina. And the vibes, they've been good this offseason. Dan Morgan, he stated his goal for the team this year. I will tell you what those goals are. Also, some injury news that we're going to have to monitor throughout the next couple of days and weeks as training camp opens up on Wednesday. But the biggest news of the day was something that I don't think the Panthers had on their bingo card. I had someone tweet at me at Julian Council before recording the show today saying, I did not have Josey Jewell not being on the Panthers a part of my bingo card. And I said to the person, I'm pretty sure that the team also didn't have that as a part of their plans the day before they open up training camp here in Charlotte. Now, I'm sure you guys have all heard by now, but Josey Jewell, the veteran linebacker, expected to enter in his second year here in Carolina in Ejiro Evero's defense, where he played in that scheme a couple of years ago when he was with the Broncos in Ejiro's lone season as a DC under Nathaniel Hackett. He was coming back for year two and expected to be healthy, be a guy who could live up to what they were hoping he could do for them last year and what was an injury-plagued season in 2024 for not just Josey, but for the entirety of the linebacker room. And unfortunately, that, at least right now, has not come to fruition. I say right now because there's still apparently a chance that Josey Jewell will be a Carolina Panther down the road this season. But right now, as of July 22nd, July 23rd, as camp is opening up, he's not on the team. The Panthers putting out this release there in Gant of Panthers.com. The Panthers released linebacker Josey Jewell on Tuesday after the veteran continues to experience concussion symptoms. According to a team spokesperson, this is important. The 30-year-old Josey Jewell wanted to prioritize his health and recovery and be considerate of his teammates, and the move allows Panthers to move forward with a group of players who are able to get all the practice reps when camp opens tomorrow. If all goes well with his recovery, he could return to the team at some point in the future. So is that a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, next year? I don't know. Because if it's going to be next year, probably they would cut him come March if that were going to be the case. So the hope, it sounds like, is that he can return at some point in time. Now, Dan Morgan, the Panthers general manager and president of football operations, spoke to the media prior to this news coming out on Tuesday afternoon. Now, Dave Canales, we'll talk to him on Wednesday. Maybe he can give us a little bit more insight of what's been going on and if they were blindsided, caught off guard, because I don't recall Josey Jewell ever being a name that was sitting out practice during OTAs or mandatory minicamp, and a name that Dave or Dan mentioned heading into the 6-week break ahead of training camp as somebody that they were concerned about health-wise. So this one certainly took me off guard, and I'm guessing it took them off guard as well. Of course, Josey Jewell, as you know, signed a 3-year contract last season, started in 12 games. He missed 5 games due to injury, was second on the team with 97 tackles, had a career high, 3.5 sacks, and was good at points in times, but really was not the player they were expecting to get. And he did miss the final 2 games of last season because of a concussion. That's where this all stems to. And that is concerning. As we've all become far more aware of the severity of concussions, which is, as we know, a brain injury, which for whatever reason back in the past, I think is just a lack of understanding and knowledge, also known as ignorance, that we just did not truly grasp how serious this injury is and what the effects can be for you later on in life. And there's been a ton of studies, and the NFL has taken better steps. They're certainly not all the way there to protect players who do have concussions, not put them out there on the field as they have a independent like neurologist that's there to decide whether you can get back on the field and all of that and go through the concussion protocol. So for this to still be an issue for something that happened back in December, like that is scary. And we talked about this a couple of years ago with Hayden Hurst, who missed pretty much half of the season, a final half of the year due to a concussion. He was able to come back and play last year. I just wanted the best for Hayden Hurst. I wanted Hayden Hurst to be able to live a happy, healthy life and not have to have the effects of a concussion have to be there with him throughout the rest of his days. And that's where I stand here with Josey Jewell as well, because, man, it's 7 months now that he's been dealing with this. And for it to get to the point where it was him who said, I can't do this right now, y'all. I have to take a step back, and I got to let my teammates have the opportunity to go out there and to perform and to get ready for the season. And if I start feeling better at some point in time, then yeah, we can talk. I'll be back. But right now, well, it's not appearing to be the case. And I did say earlier that, his contract, he doesn't have a contract anymore because they just released him. So they have to figure some kind of terms out there if they do bring him back. So we'll see. But first and foremost, like we're looking at Josey Jewell. He's 30 right now, turns 31 in December. He's played 7 years in the NFL, which I'm sure was a lifelong dream for him. He's earned $24.7 million, rather, according to Spot Track, the place for contracts. If the concussion symptoms are this bad to where you have to decide, I can't play right now, it may be the best thing for him to hang it up. But if he doesn't feel like that's what's the best thing for him, that he can come back later on, then like I support that decision. I support him. But first and foremost, want him to be happy, healthy, and whole, as I always tell y'all at the end of every single show. But what does this mean for Carolina? Because that's what you're kind of thinking about right now, selfishly, as a Panthers fan who is jacked up about what this season potentially could bring for your team. And now looking at that linebacker room, just a defense in particular that was horrible last year, this does not make them better. This subtraction of Josey Jewell. I was going back and looking at my position group rankings. I've been doing a better job of keeping all my show notes together so I can go back and find those easily. My bad, y'all. Apparently, I didn't rank the linebackers at all last week. I'm sure people in the comments on YouTube were calling me an idiot and saying you forgot about the linebackers. I think that pretty much says it all. That I did not think that highly of this linebacker group if I did not rank them. And I've already talked about the edge rusher group, which technically outside linebackers had them ranked last, and had a listener of the show, Stone, hit me up and saying, well, inside linebackers, clearly the worst position group on the roster now. I was like, well, yeah, linebackers as a whole, outside and inside, but probably right now, maybe you put him ahead of outside linebacker just because Trevor Wallace has played a little bit. You have Christian Roseboom, but it's not like either one of those guys. And Trevor hasn't played enough to even really have a strong opinion of him, but maybe they're the worst. But either way, like that's not good for that second level of your defense to have a lot of question marks going into the season. And you want to be good up front, which I think they have the potential to be. And on the back end, questions as far as the safeties in that room with Trevon Berrig, but if JC can stay healthy and play the way he played last year, and Mike Jackson plays the way he played last year, you feel good overall about that corner room. Mike Kay, who was on with us on Tuesday morning, if you check that podcast out, either by listening or watching here on YouTube, he was pretty high. At least he was talking about how high they are on Shaw Smith-Wade, the second-year player from Washington State, who was a fifth-rounder a year ago. Like there was a lot to be encouraged by as far as the offseason additions made defensively, but looking at the linebacker room right now, man, it's kind of rough. I'm a little concerned. And okay, Christian Roseman's coming off a career year, had 135 tackles. And let me look, Mike did put out something on his account on Twitter, X, where the hell you want to call it, some quotes that Dan Morgan had about Christian Roseboom going all the way back to the offseason. Here they are. He said, I think signing someone like Christian, a veteran guy who he had 135 tackles last year, he can come in and he can play. It's going to push Trevin to be better. It's going to push Josey. It's going to push all the linebackers to be better. That's why we want the type of competition, because everyone knows they need to bring it on a day-to-day basis. Otherwise, you're not going to be in the starting lineup. And then Christian Roseboom, another really important one for us, to just have players in there in a position that a lot of times you does see injuries. Already seeing one again, saw a lot last year because of the high impact plays of the inside linebacker spot, to have somebody who knows the scheme so that we can just continue to grow out our depth. Now is the last quote from actually Dave Canales, the first one from Dan Morgan, who would know the position well, as you all know, having played here in Carolina. So it's Roseboom and it's Trevin Wallace. And then outside of that, it's Claude Sherrillis, who made 2 starts last year. Wasn't necessarily great, no starts, a special teamer, but somebody that added importance, so at least right now, for his position on the roster. John Radigan played in 16 games last year, but he's a special teamer. Not asking him really at all to go out and play defensively. Jacoby Windman had to make a couple starts last season, and he wasn't great in those. And you have Ben Martin Scott from South Carolina, the UDFA. You got Tuasivi Nomura from Fresno State, the UDFA. Those 2 guys now have an opportunity that may not have been there before, because Josey Jewell's not on the roster, at least for now. Could be back later, but right now he's not. And right now I am concerned about the linebacker course. I don't know necessarily if they need to make a move right now. And that is really the question that a lot of you had already DM'd me and were asking me. What do the Panthers do from here? Do they go make a trade? Do they decide to go sign somebody off the street? They're going to have to make some moves, because we're going to top up momentarily some of the guys that are currently on PUP or the non-football injury list, and they're going to have to kind of do some corresponding moves until those guys are ready. I think you got to be patient. And we go back to what Mike said to us on Tuesday, or whether you're watching it, because I'm putting this out Tuesday evening on YouTube and probably in your podcast feed as well. But if you listen to the last episode of Mike K, I mean, Mike talked about with safety, they want to see what they have in those young guys in Lathan Ransom, the 4th round pick from Ohio State, and from the Monty Richardson as well. They want to see what they have in those guys. They want to give them some time before making a decision. And I brought this up a couple of times now, that the last 2 years, especially on that defense, and we're looking at defense again, they have gotten guys to come in late in August, like last week of the preseason late, and Troy Hill and also in Mike Jackson to come and start. And Mike Jackson, that was a really good move for this team a season ago. And now he's here back in that number 2 role, having earned a new contract. So it's not like they have to do something right now. They can wait, assess the market, assess who else might be out there available. There's plenty of time to figure that out. And who knows, maybe you get to August 22nd, right around that roster cutdown day, and Josey Jewell is feeling pretty good. And then, okay, you're fine. You can go back to Josey. But right now, Josey Jewell's not on the roster. It's going to be Trevin Wallace, it's going to be Christian Roseboom, and it's going to be a handful of guys really needing to prove it during joint practices with the Browns, during just the competition phase of everything prior to getting there, and of course during the preseason, to show that the Panthers have enough. But looking at the roster right now and what my overall thoughts were even before, not quite so sure they had enough. I liked kind of where they were more depth-wise, because Clauden's played, Jacoby's played a little bit last year, and now Trevin Wallace, he's got 8 games under his belt, and he's a promising prospect. And Christian Roseboom, he played a lot last year, and you had 3 guys come in the season that you knew could play, whereas last year you had 2 guys and you had a promising prospect in Trevin Wallace. Now you're back to just having 2 guys, and I don't know if Trevin Wallace, Christian Roseboom at this point in time is more encouraging to you than Shaq Thompson, Josey Jewell was this time last year heading to training camp. But we'll see how things play out. I do not think that they're going to be, I'm not going to say aggressive. I don't think they're going to panic and immediately make a kind of move where they're trying to bring in somebody who they think can start for them. They have 2 guys who can start. It's just about the depth that they have there. So we'll see how all that plays out, as Josey Jewell has been released by the Panthers, but could be back at some point in time in the future, either the near future, is it the latter future? Who has no idea, but thoughts, prayers out there for Josey, as that, of course, is clearly something significant to the point where he said, guys, I got to hang it up for now, and maybe we can talk later. But looking at some other injuries, because that's really what you're kind of looking at heading into camp, who's ready to go. We got some good news, got some bad news. Talk about some of the guys who are headed to PUP, and somebody who may be good to go here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Ever wish managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I've been using Monarch Money for the past few months, and it's been a game changer for me as I've managed my money throughout all my summer travels. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. Once again, the Carolina Panthers opening up training camp on Wednesday. The veterans arriving on Tuesday afternoon. The rookies arrived on Monday, 10 a.m. Boots on the ground. I'll be there throughout all training camp with your coverage here on Locked On Panthers. Just let you know, I know I say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Just subscribe, whether it's to the podcast feed or here on YouTube, because that's going to be the best way to know when a new episode comes out. Because I'm just going to be putting out episodes when it makes sense. Like I put out this Tuesday episode with Mike Tuesday morning on YouTube, and you got those as typical of the podcast crew. You got them right there for your morning commute. This episode, I'm putting it out on Tuesday night for podcasts and also for YouTube viewers. So go check out all the shows I got coming in. I'm just going to drop them when I got to do them. So like tomorrow or today, whenever you listen to it, on Wednesday after training camp, I'm going to record. So it's going to probably be out like in the afternoon, maybe even before you get home from work or before you leave for work. So it should be right there for you to check out. Just going to let you know, just subscribe so you can go ahead and check out all of the content I got going on here as we prepare for the 2025 regular season here in Carolina. But good news and bad news injury-wise. Let's start off with the good news, since we just talked about Josey Jewell no longer being a Carolina Panther for at least the time being, but seems like that may be it for him just based off of the fact it's been 7 months. He's been dealing with concussion, and he decided to step aside and allow the team to move forward without him. The good news, Derrick Brown missed pretty much all of last season. Tore his meniscus in that embarrassing week 1 loss on the road in New Orleans, came back and found out that his knee was no good and missed the final 16 games of the year. As we know, the Panthers defense, especially the run defense, was atrocious, giving up 3,000 plus yards on the ground, the worst in franchise history, and one of the worst rushing allowed totals in the history of the National Football League. And not having Derrick did not help things. A'Shawn Robinson filled in admirably as far as the additions that they made last offseason at defensive tackle, which Tuttle struggled, LeBron Ray struggled, Deshaun Williams struggled. Everybody really struggled last season, aside from, I guess, A'Shawn being the lone bright spot. And that was a big point of emphasis this offseason for Dan Morgan, for Brant Tillis, for Dave Canales, and the entirety of the Panthers organization to get better up front, to add more meat and add really just more veterans. They got Turk Wharton, Bobby Brown III in there as well, and in drafting Cam Jackson. Excited to see what that interior defensive line can look like for Carolina this season, and really excited to see the Panthers be able to stop the run, because quite honestly, sick of watching it. Because if you can't stop the run, and JC said this last year, he said it early, you can't stop the run, you can't stop anything in this league. Dan Morgan said it on Tuesday. He said, if you can't stop the run, you really don't have a chance to win games. So getting Derrick Brown back, big addition, but here is good news. He's back this season, but he's also been cleared for all activities as camp opens up on Wednesday morning. Now, Dan Morgan, again, was followed up and asked about, so does that mean it's good to go? Like full full bore. Yeah. He said that they're going to be smart with him. They're going to bring him along slowly. You look at things 2 weeks from now is going to be joint practice with the Cleveland Browns. I have said this multiple times that for me, if he's good to go, cleared to go, and he's been able to get some licks and feel confident in that knee, would love for Derrick Brown to be out there for joint practice with the Browns and with the Texans. Does he need to play in the preseason per se? I don't know. But I would would love for him to be there during those 2 practice days versus Houston and versus Cleveland. That's what I would love to see. But they're going to be smart about it, bring him along slowly. He's a guy who they paid a ton of money to a year ago back in March. So they're not going to sit here and play any games and get him injured again and be in his position like they were in last year, which I don't think they're going to be in because they brought in some guys like Bobby Brown III and Turk Wharton. In particular, Bobby Brown III, as far as run defense goes, to elevate what they got there on the interior of the Panthers defensive line. So that's the good news. Injury-wise, the bad news, along with Josey Jewell, is that Tommy Tremble and a couple other guys are going to start off camp on PUP. Now, that's tight end Tommy Tremble. He signed a new deal this offseason. He, wide receiver Dan Chisena were both placed on the active, physically unable to perform list. And then punter Sam Martin, he's on the active / non-football injury list. So he must been messing around the last couple of weeks and injured himself to the point where he's not ready to go. They can all be activated from either list at any time during camp. So I would think that the Panthers, at least just to kind of maybe fill the void, may bring in some guys, but they may not because they have a lot of receivers. And then actually Dan Morgan did say about Sam Martin that he had a minor hamstring injury and that he's trending in a good direction, doesn't want to put a timeline on it, and does not believe that they're going to sign a punter. Says they're just going to use a jugs machine. So if it's a minor issue, then I'm guessing he's going to be back probably sooner rather than later. As far as that goes, would love to know what exactly happened there with Sam Martin as far as that hamstring for him to be on the non-football injury list. As far as Chisena, no one out there on Tuesday, part of the media corps, asked what was going on there. I may follow up and try to get some idea what's going on there when I'm out there on Wednesday. But with Tommy, that's the one that you're really mainly worried about because it didn't seem like Sam Martin should be that concerning. But he had back surgery back in May, something that was bothering him, and talked to the training staff, and they gave him an option, and he took the option to have surgery, and he's expected to be back at some point in time. Just when is it going to be? And that was one of the key questions I had heading into this week once they arrived and once we heard from Dan Morgan, and he said that Tommy is ahead of schedule, which is good news, and that he feels good about where he's at as far as his availability to begin the season. That's been the thing for me. Like, PUP was something that was brought up. Now, I forget because it's just like so much happens throughout the year that you kind of forget like the protocols when you get to training camps. Like, okay, yeah, so some guys can be on PUP for training camp and then be taken off, which is totally fine. And some guys can be placed on PUP like back in, was it April or May? It was May, I think, when that happened with Jonathan Brooks and be done for the year. And then you can also be placed on it as you enter in the season once you've been added to the active roster following roster cutdown days. So there's totally different ways it can play out through the calendar year, which can be a little confusing even for somebody like me who has to cover this team on a daily basis and try to remember all these things. So I was a little worried about, would it be the first 4 weeks or would it just be like starting off training camp? Right now, it's starting off training camp, but according to Dan Morgan, his availability for the beginning of the season is still TBD, to be determined, and that they'll see how things play out. Right now, as we talked about with Mike K on the latest episode of the show, that you got a guy in JT Sanders, who looks great. And listening to JT talk about, like, he got his body right, he ate right, all of that, what he did was become a professional. And that's what you want to see someone do in their first real offseason as a pro, because ain't nobody going to baby you. There's no training table, none of that anymore. This isn't college. You got to be a man and you got to take care of your body and be ready to play. And that's what he's done. So that's great news about what he's going to be able to do for you moving forward. And I think there's a little bit of questions about what he was going to do maturity-wise once he got to this level. And looks like that's not a question as far as his nutrition and being ready to go and even working out with his teammates throughout the offseason. So love that. Mitchell Evans talked about how I love pass-catching tight ends from Notre Dame. Still like Tommy, but I think that he's a guy who can really help them. James Mitchell, he's someone also could be, now with Tommy out, could really work his way on the roster, maybe as that 4th tight end they want to keep for. So I think tight end going to be good to get those younger guys a lot of reps. And that's what happened last year when Yeah, Ian Thomas was banged up. Same thing with Tommy Trimble was banged up. It was Jordan Matthews and the young buck, JT Sanders. I get JT Sanders having to be kind of that vet in the room for a guy like Mitchell Evans entering in his rookie year. And you got James Mitchell as well. He's been around for a little bit in the league, but not an older player. So I think tight end wise, they're probably going to be fine, but you want to get Tommy back sooner rather than later, just as probably your best run blocker, at least as a known commodity. That could end up being Mitchell Evans at some point in his career. But right now, it would be Tommy Trimble just based on what we've seen. So TBD on when he'll be available. But right now, starting off on PUP, and then we'll find out what the deal with his Dan Chisena, a guy who's in a wide receiver competition, really more of a special teams kind of guy than someone you're going to be expecting to throw the football to. And that's really back of the roster dudes. That's what we're going to do is play special teams. So we'll see whether he can be back out there sooner rather than later to try to make the team. Dan Morgan, he set some goals for the Panthers in 2025 and outlined where things are headed for this organization. And we'll talk about those here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and Locked On NFL are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Dan Morgan enters into his second full season as Carolina Panthers president of football operations and general manager. Last year, Panthers went 5-12 in his first year, teaming up with Dave Canales and Brant Tillis as the new Panthers brain trust. And this season, they are hoping to see improved commitments and also improved results on the field. He listed some goals, but prior to that, Dan had a prepared statement. He talked about how they wanted to reaffirm their commitment to building a smart, tough, passionate, competitive, resilient, and adaptable football team. That's all the superlatives that they want the Carolina Panthers organization to be. It aims to trust their process, to be disciplined, and build a team that can sustain over time, which David Tepper, he promised us. It's been a minute. Been a long time since he said this about Rome not being built in a day, and after he had fired Ron Rivera, blah, 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 that they were going to build sustained success. Talk about short-term suffering, and that has been happening, and then getting sustained success after that. So we're still waiting for the sustained success because the short-term suffering has been going on a decent amount of time. Now, how short-term do you believe it really is compared to what the sustained success will look like? We'll find out hopefully at the end of the rainbow. And Dan did mention that they made targeted moves this offseason, both on the offense side of the ball, defensively. Of course, we saw that to improve the team, saying, quote, "We believe these moves combined with our existing talent, veteran leadership, and development of our young players position us well for the challenges ahead. This season, our goals are clear. Improve our consistency, develop our young core, have our vets lead the way, and compete every week with a relentless team-first mindset." So he laid out the goals. Not one of those goals was to make the playoffs, but it doesn't have to be a goal. If you do all of those things, you're likely going to be a playoff team. Now, I didn't say you're going to be a playoff team. You're likely going to be a playoff team, but it's about the process. And I know it's a college coach, like Nick Saban always was about the process. We hear about going 1-0 each week in the NFL and all the dumb cliches that are out there, but that is truly the mindset that you have to have when building an organization the right way and heading into a season. So that's what they're focused on. Improve our consistency. I'm going to tell you what I believe all these goals mean, at least to me. When he says improve our consistency, think about last season. Just how damn bad the quarterback play was for half the year. God awful the weeks 1 and weeks 2. Shockingly bad. Awesome week 3 when Andy stepped in. Good week 4, then it went downhill. Bryce came back, really didn't do a ton against Denver. Garbage time, whatever. Saints game, okay. Managed it really well. Thought one of his better games, and there weren't a ton to look at back at that point in time to say that it was one of his best games that he played in the NFL. Then in Munich, he played well, played really well against Kansas City, played well again against Tampa Bay, played well against Philadelphia. Then we got a couple of stinkers there up and down. But overall, second half of the season, you got winning quarterback play. But for half the season, you didn't get that. So if you don't have consistent quarterback play to the point where it's like just the worst you've ever seen to average to, okay, top 6 according to PFF for half the year, like that's just not a formula winning and have success. Like Buffalo doesn't get that. Kansas City doesn't get that. Cincinnati doesn't get that. Baltimore doesn't get that. Like all those guys are consistent. They give you what you need. Now, they're more than consistent. They play at the highest of levels on a consistent basis. We're just asking here in Carolina, I think, at least they're just asking, and you as a fan are just asking at this point in time, just be consistently average. Be able to play your 111th, which is something that Dave Canales has talked about when working with Bryce Young. So for half the season, you got bad quarterback play. And you combine that with the worst defense in the history of the NFL, scoring defense-wise, even though not every single one of those points is on them. Obviously, most of them were. You're going to only be able to win 5 games. And it's honestly a miracle that they even won 5 games with that bad a quarterback play for that period of time and with that bad of a defense. So if you just get second of the year Bryce, even if you want to throw in like the Dallas game where he wasn't great, and then like the Tampa game where he wasn't really great, and even like he wasn't putting up the big numbers against New Orleans or New York in games you still found a way to win, you get more consistent play and get more of what you saw in the second half. Okay, that's a lot better than what you got last year. And if you don't have the worst defense in history of the league scoring defense-wise, which I don't think they're going to have anywhere close to that this season, then hell, right then and there, you're in a position to win like 7 or 8 more games. Not 7 or 8. Well, I'm sorry, not 7 or 8 more games. 7 or 8 games at the least, because that puts you like as an average team in the NFL, you would think. Maybe it's a 9. Trying to not shoot too high up there to the moon right now when talking to y'all about expectations for this team, because I got to see it first. But even in the second half of the year, when they started to play better and you started to see what Dave was building here, you had the great efforts against Kansas City. You had the great efforts against Philadelphia, against Arizona, and Tampa the first time. But then you had stinkers against Dallas, against Tampa. Then you play well against Atlanta. You got to – it's going to happen. It's the NFL. Some football games are hard to win. Some days you're just not going to be great. But you got to have more consistency if you ever want to believe you have a chance and dream of having a chance of winning and getting to the highest levels. That's what I think he means by that. Develop our young core. Well, that starts with Bryce Young again. Entering year 3, it's his second year of Dave Canales and a huge year as far as what is the direction the Panthers going to go in at the quarterback position after the season. Are you going to give him the 5th-year option? Are you going to give him a big-time extension? How is this going to play out this season? And is Bryce going to trust Dave? And is Dave going to trust Bryce? Like, that relationship is one that I still think is probably being mended after what happened last year, because you can look at how bad he played. And I know plenty of you were clamoring for him to be benched. And I know after he got benched, I said it was over. And it, of course, is not over for Bryce Young. But, like, it was 2 weeks, man. And you pull the plug that quickly. Like, there's going to be some bruised egos, hurt feelings. And then even the way I felt like Dave handled the media, didn't love it. How he's handled it behind closed doors, I don't know. But what I do know is this is still about Bryce Young. Now, the team, offensively, I believe, is in a position where I don't really want to hear any excuses, even if the wide receivers are still a lot more projection than truly being known commodities outside of what you have in Adam Thielen. But still, like, not a ton of excuses at this point in time. So it's Bryce Young. It's developing our young core. And, well, that young core is the core around Young in this team as a whole. But that also includes Xavier Legette. That includes Tyrell McMillan, Jalen Coker, Jatavion Sanders, Mitchell Evans, Trevin Wallace, Nick Scorton, Prince Uman Mielen, Shaw Smith-Wade, Tamai Richardson, Lathan Ransom. By my count, you're looking at 11 first or second year players who are going to have to play a major role on this team this season. 11. So this is a young football team with some vets sprinkled in there as well. And speaking of vets, Dan said, have our vets lead the way. For me, this starts with the offensive and defensive lines. Offensive line-wise, I mean, Ike Ekwonu, this is going to be his 4th year. He's entering into vet status. Maybe we won't put him in that category, but you have Damian Lewis entering into his 6th year in the NFL. You have Robert Hunt also entering his 6th year in the NFL. You have Austin Corbett potentially as your starter at center. You have Taylor Moton coming back here in Carolina. Like, you have a veteran offensive line. You have guys who have played a ton of snaps in this league, who have had success last year together. You have an offensive line that can be a leader in that locker room. And Robert Hunt has already been that. We heard from him on Tuesday as well. Defensive line, same case. You have Derrick Brown back. You brought back Ashawn Robinson. You have 2 vets in Bobby Brown III and Turk Wharton. There's a lot of experience in vets in that room. Like, you cannot win in the NFL at a high level if your offensive line, defensive lines are not good. The offensive line improved last year to be good. The defensive line last year was not good, but I don't think it really had a chance. This year, they have a chance to be a solid unit and to have the kind of impact the offensive line has last year, this upcoming season. If they do, they got a chance. So it's having really those veterans and those rooms lead the way, but it's also Adam Thielen. Got a young wide receiver room. XL, it's his 2nd year, but he's still a young buck. Same thing with Jalen Coker, Taylor McMillan. There's a lot of young guys fighting to make it on this team. Chuba Hubbard, he's going to be a veteran leader in that locker room once again. Tommy Trimble, he's got some young guys in there at tight end. J.C. Horn, he's going to have to be a leader. Javon Merrick coming in, he's going to have to be a leader, especially those 2 young guys right now in the secondary at safety, in Nemani and in Lathan Ransom. Like, you're going to need those guys to step up and lead the way. And the last one, Dan said, was pretty self-explanatory. Compete every week with a relentless team-first mindset. They do those 4 things, they can be a playoff team potentially. If they don't do all those 4 things, think they're going to have a difficult time getting to where they want to go, and, of course, where you want them to go, and certainly where the guys who talk about this team every single day of the year, want them to go as well. So it's finally here. Training camp. Can't wait to get out there on Wednesday morning. Appreciate all of y'all for listening. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe and follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where I have all your training camp coverage. You can also hit me up in my DMs by asking what's going on at training camp. All those questions I can answer eventually once we get to the mailbag as well. But in the meantime, be safe. Be happy, be whole. As always, keep bounding. I'm back with y'all on Wednesday with reactions to day 1 of Carolina Panthers training camp ahead of the 2025 regular season, and I cannot wait.